There are places so remote and inaccessible that they hold mysteries and realities that defy the imagination. Nations such as this one, surrounded by what many consider to be the most dangerous coastline on the planet, as it is controlled by the feared African pirates. A land of extreme traditions and ancestral secrets, such as being one of the most polygamous countries in the world, or keeping alive one of the most controversial and debated traditions in the world, known as levirate marriage, which forces widows to marry the brother of their deceased husband. In this new video from Uncensored World, we will delve into Somalia, a territory that few dare to enter, where extraordinary biodiversity, lethal deserts, and the oldest city in Africa still inhabited coexist. But it is also a place where borders hide extreme realities, forced by the need to survive, which hold enigmas and ancient traditions that you are about to discover. Get ready to discover one of the wildest and most enigmatic territories on Earth. Let's get started. Somalia is a country that seems suspended in time and often forgotten by the rest of the world. It is a land full of contrasts where history, nature, and culture intertwine in a unique way, forming a setting that few dare to explore. This country borders Djibouti and the Gulf of Aden to the north, the Arabian Sea to the northeast, the Indian Ocean to the east, Kenya to the south, and Ethiopia to the west, creating a territory that connects the Horn of Africa with the rest of the continent, and has historically been a crossroads of cultures, trade, and migratory routes. Somalia covers an area of approximately 743,400 square kilometers, a size that makes it one of the largest countries in East Africa, comparable in size to countries such as France and only slightly smaller than Chile. This results in impressive geographical diversity, with arid deserts, imposing mountains, coastal plains along its extensive coastline on the Indian Ocean, and unique ecosystems. Despite its size, Somalia has a relatively low population density, with around 45 inhabitants per square kilometer, which means that much of its territory remains unpopulated, and that communities are mainly concentrated on the coast and in some inland cities such as Mogadishu, Hargeisa, and Bosaso, creating a striking contrast between the vast expanse of the country and the dispersion of its inhabitants. To put this into perspective, France has approximately 4 times the population density, while most African countries have several times the density of Somalia, demonstrating how geography, climate, and resource availability shape human distribution and ways of life in this country. Some of the reasons for this low density can be found in the lack of infrastructure, the extreme climate of the region, the scarcity of resources for its inhabitants, and even limited foreign aid, as few dare to venture into Somalia, largely due to the presence of the feared African pirates, a reality that has marked the history and daily life of the country. All of this has a lot to do with both the present and the past that we are about to explore. And as you will see, not everything is negative, because thanks to these conditions, ancient societies and traditions have remained virtually unchanged over the centuries, preserving customs, rituals, and ways of life that have survived conflict, drought, and external influence. The name Somalia comes from the Somali people, the country's predominant ethnic group, whose oral history dates back thousands of years. Although its exact origin is a matter of debate, it is believed that the word Somali could derive from Sama'ale, the name of an ancient ancestral clan that would have populated the region. Since ancient times, these communities have been organized into clans and sub-clans that determine the social and political structure, defining how resources were distributed, how marriage and trade alliances were established, and how conflicts were resolved, creating a system where tradition and family loyalty were essential for social cohesion. This reality of clans has not changed over the centuries, and today the country continues to be organized into very strong clans that dictate the rules of marriage, intimate relationships, inheritance, and conflict resolution, among many other things. Clans use marriage alliances to reinforce the clan's position, giving more importance to the group than to the individual. to the point of keeping alive ancient traditions such as levirate marriage, which we will learn about in more detail later, which obliges widows from certain groups to marry the brother of their deceased husband for the good of their family. The main Somali clans are the Darod, Hawiye, Isaac, and Rahanwain, and they form a complex society where group membership not only determines cultural identity, but also opportunities for survival, the distribution of land and pastures, and the way of relating to other clans in the state, with each group having its own rules and norms, where nomadic mobility and adaptation to the extreme environment have historically been key to survival. Few people know that Somalia is one of the most nomadic countries in the world, and this is surely due to the obscurity of this country. But it is a territory where a large part of the population is constantly on the move, following routes established by previous generations to ensure the survival of their families and their herds. Being nomadic means not settling permanently in one place as most of us do, but moving according to the seasons, the availability of pasture and water, and climatic conditions, a reality that allows them to adapt to an extremely dry and changing environment, as staying in one place could be fatal for both people and animals. These Somali clans are organized in such a way that mobility becomes an essential part of their economy and culture, traveling with camels, goats, sheep, and occasionally cows, carrying only what is necessary to live. This lifestyle allows them to take advantage of scattered natural resources, protect their animals from drought, and avoid conflicts over pasture or water with other neighboring clans, ensuring the survival of the community despite the extreme conditions of the desert and plains. In order to move quickly, Somali nomads build temporary dwellings called akal, or Somali akal, which are lightweight structures that are easy to assemble and disassemble, using materials available in the environment such as wood, reeds, canes, and sometimes manure mixed with mud, allowing them to erect roofs and walls that are resistant to wind and sun, but light enough to be moved in a few hours, demonstrating an ingenious adaptation to the climate and their lifestyle. The design of these houses is practical and functional, with dome-shaped or low pyramid roofs to withstand sandstorms and provide shade, and their quick and easy construction allows the whole family to move from one area to another in a matter of days or weeks, following the availability of fresh grass for the animals and avoiding areas where water shortages or extreme heat could jeopardize their survival. This nomadic lifestyle not only ensures physical survival, but also reinforces social cohesion within clans, as all members must collaborate in transportation, livestock care, building homes, and searching for resources, keeping alive ancient traditions of cooperation and knowledge of the environment that are passed down from generation to generation, and make Somalia a country where mobility and adaptation to the environment are essential for daily life. For them, both the present and the past are marked by centuries of trade and contact with the Arab, Persian, and Indian worlds, with Somalia being a strategic point on the spice, ivory, and slave routes, which allowed for the development of port cities such as Mogadishu, Berbera, and Merka, which became true centers of cultural and economic exchange, where foreign religions, customs, and languages arrived and merged with local traditions, creating a rich and diverse culture, unique in the Horn of Africa, and a living testimony to the importance of this region throughout history. Mogadishu is the capital and main port of this country, and is considered the oldest inhabited city in Africa, with records dating back more than 1,000 years, when Arab and Persian merchants began to establish permanent settlements. This city is not only relevant on an African level, but also ranks among the oldest cities in the world, comparable to places such as Varanasi in India or Aleppo in Syria, where the continuity of life has allowed traditions, architecture, and rituals dating back centuries to be preserved. In Mogadishu, traditional markets still display the exchange of spices, fabrics, and seafood as they did centuries ago, and its ancient coastal forts, mosques, and Italian colonial houses tell the story of conquests, trade, and intertwined cultures, while its modern neighborhoods coexist with historic ones, reflecting the resilience of a city that has survived conflict, flooding, and economic and social transformations. Thinking about these stories of conquests in the recent past of the country and its capital, as you will now see, there were also many countries and cultures that tried to dominate this country. During its colonial era, Somalia was divided between Italy and Great Britain, with the south under Italian administration and the north under British control, while parts of the east remained in French hands. And Ethiopia also claimed territories, leading to fragmentation that had lasting consequences, influencing its infrastructure, education, and economic development, leaving a legacy that still affects the country's life and governance. Despite gaining independence in 1961, these historical divisions contributed to the current difficulties and complexity of administering such a large country. And this diversity of colonizers also left a unique mark on Somalia, which is reflected in its culture, architecture, languages, and urban traditions, creating a mix not found in other African countries. Over time, and thanks to prolonged contact with Arab and Persian traders over centuries, Islam became the main religion in the country, unifying much of the population under common religious practices and norms, while keeping alive many ancestral traditions specific to the clans, creating a balance between religion and local customs that still influences social, political, and family life in Somalia today. One of the most striking curiosities of Somalia today is that it is one of the most polygamous countries in the world, where most men can have several wives at the same time as permitted by the Muslim religion, with no strict limit in some cases. Or in other words, in Somalia, a man can have as many wives as he wants, or rather, as many as he can afford, since the actual practice depends on the economic capacity, social position, and norms of each clan. Polygamy in Somalia combines the influence of the Muslim religion with very ancient clan traditions and the way society is organized, where multiple marriages not only reinforce the social position of the group, but also ensure family unity and inheritance between generations. The main reasons behind polygamy include the protection and care of widows or orphans, the expansion of the family to ensure more hands to work the land or with the animals, and the consolidation of alliances between clans, which guarantees support and security in an environment that is sometimes difficult and dangerous. As we mentioned, although religion allows men to have multiple wives, the reality depends on the man's resources and clan norms, and in many cases women have a voice and some ability to decide on these marriages, being able to accept or reject joining a polygamous household, although their decisions are often conditioned by tradition and social expectations. Much of the reason behind the persistence of these ancestral realities today has to do with the fact that for many decades, Somalia has been considered one of the poorest countries on the planet. This is due to a combination of natural, historical, and social factors that have limited its development. Although some indicators show some improvement in major cities today, the majority of the population continues to face critical levels of poverty and limited access to basic services such as water, food, health, and education. Somalia's extreme climate with prolonged droughts and unforgiving deserts directly affects agriculture, livestock, and water availability, forcing millions of people to constantly move with their herds of camels, goats, and sheep, relying on limited resources and continually adapting to an environment that can be unforgiving and dangerous. Some of the most extreme regions include the Ogaden Desert in the south and the Galgudud and Mudug Plains, where temperatures can exceed 50 degrees Celsius during the day, making these areas some of the hottest places on Earth, and where the combination of scorching heat, lack of rainfall, and scarcity of vegetation makes survival a constant challenge for nomadic and sedentary communities alike. In addition to the extreme climate, the lack of internal resources and the state's limited capacity to distribute services and ensure security means that many communities depend on foreign aid. But the presence of internal conflicts, insecurity in certain regions, and the perception of danger from piracy make this aid very difficult to maintain, leaving many people without access to basic necessities. In this context, piracy has emerged as an activity that, although dangerous and controversial, for some represents a means of survival, especially in coastal communities where economic opportunities are extremely limited and access to natural resources is scarce. Somalia's coastal region, which stretches for more than 3,300 kilometers along the Indian Ocean and the Arabian Sea, makes it one of the countries with the longest coastline in Africa and provides a strategic location for various activities. Its long beaches, low cliffs, and natural bays provide observation points and quick access to vessels transiting these waters, which is why, throughout history, this area has been an important center of trade and encounter between peoples, explaining the vast maritime experience of many local communities that have become the feared African pirates of today. In practice, piracy is not centrally organized, but is usually linked to clans or small tribal groups operating in specific areas, where family ties are essential for coordination and logistics. Often, these groups do not act with the aim of indiscriminate violence, but with the intention of securing resources or negotiating ransoms as a means of subsistence in an environment where other economic opportunities are almost non-existent, and the income generated is used to support local families and communities. Pirates typically use small speedboats to approach large commercial vessels, taking advantage of their speed and knowledge of the coastline to intercept them, establish contact, and demand a ransom before quickly retreating to safe areas near the coast. A famous case illustrating this reality is the hijacking of the MV Maersk Alabama in 2009, which captured global attention and became an example of how these groups operate. Captain Richard Phillips was taken hostage and eventually rescued by U.S. Special Forces, an event that inspired the film Captain Phillips, starring Tom Hanks, which clearly and cinematically shows how a piracy situation unfolds and the tension it creates for both the crew and the pirates. Despite international perception, it is important to understand that this activity reflects the harsh environment and limitations faced by these populations, where desert, drought, insecurity, and lack of infrastructure force inhabitants to resort to extreme measures to survive. At this point, we would like to ask you, would you dare to enter Somali waters? And if you could, would you marry several women or several men? How many do you think you could handle? We would love to read your comments, so if you've made it this far, feel free to pause the video and leave us your comment and a nice like. As you know, your support is the best way you can help Uncensored World. The combination of all these factors creates a scenario where daily life is a constant challenge, but at the same time allows ancient traditions and forms of social organization that have survived centuries of change and hardship to remain alive, demonstrating the resilience of a country that, despite its shortcomings, remains unique in Africa and the world. One of the best examples of this capacity for improvement and survival can be seen in the world's largest camel markets, which take place in this country. Specifically, these markets are usually held in the city of Burao, in the Somaliland region. Thousands of camels are traded every week in these huge camel markets, and this exchange is essential to sustaining the lives of families, as camels are essential for transportation, milk, meat, and in general as a symbol of wealth and social status within clans. The Burao market attracts buyers and sellers from all over Somalia and neighboring countries, creating an atmosphere full of movement, negotiation, and ancestral traditions. The animals are carefully displayed, their size, health, and abilities evaluated, and transactions are based not only on money, but also on relationships of trust and agreements between clans, showing how culture and economy come together in a country where opportunities are limited and social cooperation is vital for survival. This reality of survival is closely linked to one of Somalia's most controversial traditions, known as levirate marriage, probably one of the most debated practices in the world. Levirate marriage is an ancient tradition in Somalia that requires the widow of a deceased man to marry one of the deceased's brothers, if he is unmarried, as a way to protect the family, keep property within the clan, and ensure the continuity of the line of descent. This practice is centuries old and continues to exist in many regions of the country, especially in nomadic and rural communities, where family cohesion and survival depend on the union between clans. The term levirate comes from the Latin levire, meaning brother of the husband, and its origin is not exclusive to Somalia, but is found in various cultures around the world, from Africa to Asia and Europe, although in each place it takes different forms according to local traditions and social norms. In Somalia, this practice has become intertwined with the powerful clan culture, reinforcing the tradition as in few other places in the world. Although it may seem strange, this tradition has a strong connection to survival and the local economy. In societies such as this, where resources are limited and life depends on teamwork, marrying the widow to the deceased's unmarried brother ensures that the family's property and animals are not dispersed, and that the children continue to be protected and cared for, preventing the widow from being left destitute or the children from losing their livelihood. Levirate marriage also reflects the importance of clans in everyday life in Somalia. Each clan has its own rules and customs, and these compulsory unions strengthen ties between families, prevent conflicts over inheritance, and consolidate the group's position within the community, showing how tradition and survival are inextricably intertwined. Interestingly, although it may seem strict, in many cases levirate marriage is consensual. The widow may accept the union for convenience or due to social pressure, and there are situations in which agreements are negotiated between families regarding maintenance, cohabitation, and the management of property. The practice also has curious aspects that surprise those unfamiliar with Somali culture. For example, in some clans, if the brother does not wish to marry the widow, another close relative may assume that role, and in special cases, symbolic compensation is established to ensure that the rights of the widow and children are not lost. This shows the flexibility of the tradition within a framework of stricter norms, normally supervised by the clans. Historically, the tradition of levirate marriage has been a way of protecting women and children in societies where the absence of a husband could mean the loss of land, livestock, or social status. In nomadic regions such as this, where survival depends on the herd and family labor, keeping the widow within the clan ensures that no one is left destitute and that the community continues to function efficiently. This practice shares certain similarities with other forms of family organization around the world, such as fraternal polyandry in Tibet or Mongolia, where brothers shared wives to keep family assets together and ensure the survival of the group, showing how different cultures have developed similar solutions to similar social and economic challenges. You can discover these places and realities in more videos on our channel about these other countries, where we delve deeper into these ancient traditions. Over time, despite changes and the influence of modernity, the tradition of levirate marriage remains alive in many parts of Somalia. Although its practice has declined in larger cities, in rural villages and remote areas it remains a respected custom, passed down from generation to generation, a reflection of life in an extreme environment, of clan-based social organization, of the need to protect family and property, and of the way in which ancient customs continue to shape the lives of millions of people seeking to survive and thrive in one of the most challenging countries in the world. In this country, traditions such as levirate marriage and polygamy reflect a reality where marriage goes far beyond romantic love, as it is a tool for social and economic survival, a system in which marital unions are designed to strengthen alliances, secure resources, and preserve the structure of the group, rather than to respond to personal or sentimental decisions. That is why in Somalia, it is not uncommon for women to share husbands successively, or in some cases, to live with several men from the same clan, depending on social circumstances and local norms. As you can see, Somalia is a unique place in the world, full of contrasts and realities that are found in very few corners of the planet. Much of this uniqueness is reflected in its biodiversity, as the country is considered one of the most diverse in Africa, with ecosystems ranging from scorching deserts to open savannas, coastal cliffs, and tropical mangroves. One of the most curious animals inhabiting these lands is the beira, a small antelope endemic to the northeast of the country, adapted to survive in rocky and extremely dry areas, capable of traveling long distances without water and finding food in the most inhospitable terrain, demonstrating the incredible adaptation of wildlife to a relentless climate. If you want to explore Somali biodiversity, a must-see is the Hafun Peninsula on the northeast coast, known for its pristine beaches, coral reefs, and migratory birds. Here you can see flamingos, herons, and other unique species that use the region as a resting point during their migrations, and where local fishermen also coexist with nature, maintaining traditional methods that respect marine ecosystems. Somalia's biodiversity is not only a natural spectacle, but also a lesson in resilience and adaptation. In a territory where humans must face droughts, deserts, and dangerous coastlines, this extraordinary fauna and flora display unique survival strategies, as in the case of people, reminding us that, despite the difficulties, life always finds a way to persist and offer landscapes and ecosystems that are not seen anywhere else on the planet. If you've made it this far, you're probably wondering how you could get to this enigmatic country and whether it's really possible to do so without putting your life at risk. With this in mind, at Uncensored World, we have conducted thorough research to offer you the most comprehensive and realistic information on how to visit Somalia, one of the most mysterious and unexplored destinations on the planet. Traveling to Somalia is not easy, but it is possible. To enter the country, visitors need a visa, which can be obtained through Somali embassies or specialized agencies with local contacts. Most travelers enter Somalia by air, arriving at Aden Ade International Airport in Mogadishu or Hargeisa Airport in Somaliland, a more stable and secure region within Somali territory. In terms of safety, it is important to state clearly that Somalia is still considered a risk zone, especially in the south and center of the country. However, there are relatively peaceful areas, particularly in Somaliland and Puntland, where some experienced travelers and journalists have been able to visit markets, coastlines, and deserts without incident, always accompanied by local guides and taking all necessary precautions. Despite the challenges, Somalia offers unparalleled authenticity. The country is extremely inexpensive. A modest apartment in Mogadishu can cost between $100 and $200 per month, while a room in a mid-range hotel costs between $20 and $40 per night. A dinner for two at a local restaurant is unlikely to exceed $15, and tours organized by local guides to places such as the Camel market in Hargeisa cost between $30 and $50, depending on the duration and type of transport used. Among the most fascinating destinations is the Hafun Peninsula, the easternmost point of the African continent, a remote landscape of deserted beaches, cliffs, and fishing villages where the Indian Ocean and the Arabian Sea meet in an eternal dance. In these places, travelers can observe the untamed beauty of a country that, despite all its difficulties, remains standing, preserving its ancestral essence and its inseparable connection to the desert and the sea. At Uncensored World, we hope that this journey through the enigmas and curiosities of Somalia has been as exciting for you as it has been for us. With that in mind, and considering the effort that goes into making these videos, we would love for you to give us a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave us a nice comment. It's the best way you can help us continue to bring you the best content every week. If you enjoyed this video and are not yet subscribed, don't wait any longer and do so now by activating the bell so you don't miss the fascinating videos we make every week. Videos like this one that you can enjoy now to learn about one of the most enigmatic corners of the planet. Don't miss out and discover the wonders this place has to offer.